Hey, what's up? It's the Bober and Handley Pro Football Podcast as we are entering Week 5 action. Tonight's game, the Thursday night game, actually the very first one. So if you are a subscriber to certain internet subscriptions with your TV provider and you don't get the NFL Network, the good news is tonight is the first Fox broadcast. So everybody should get it. It's the Bears and the Bucks. So you should be able to watch this. I don't know how I feel about that. We'll get into that in a little bit. He is the former pro, Chris Bober. I am your radio host, Nick Handley. And Bober, the COVID thing, man, it's a mess. And it's not like it's consuming the entire league, but this talk of contingency and what the NFL needs to do once you get past that bye week option. Basically, we're talking about the Titans, and we're waiting to get more information today. Today is a very important day to see if the Titans will have to punt yet again for a game, or could they possibly play Sunday or even Monday? And I even saw something that could even possibly have a Tuesday scenario.
Yeah, this is with the exception of someone really getting sick from this, and God forbid someone dies from COVID in the NFL. This is the worst case scenario besides that, because the Titans have had about 20 people within their facility that have tested positive. The good thing is I heard that the sickness isn't as rampant as major symptoms, but they do have a concern there. And I think the way the NFL is handling this is they have these bracelets that the guys wear, and they know how long they've been around each other. So the CDC says if you're within 6 foot of someone without a mask for 15 minutes or longer. Well, they're separating, and they have proof of all that, which is kind of releases some of their liability. But they just can't stop getting tests to come in positive. And the NFL is going to be super cautious about that. They're in the spotlight. They have a lot to lose if the worst happens. So I don't know how you can take and put them on the field this weekend if they haven't. I mean, they haven't been practicing at all. I mean, since the beginning of last week.
Yes. And we'll get into that here in a moment too. There might have been a little workout. Well, there was, according to several people who witnessed it.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is there's a report that some of the Ryan Tannehill and some of the players went to a local high school field and worked out.
Yeah.
And wow, I think those guys are going to get hammered by the NFL, because whether it's right or wrong, it's not for us to discuss that, but they do have rules in there for protocol. And I guarantee you that they are breaking a protocol by going and doing that. It's a shame, really, because they just want to play football. But that's the world we live in, and I think they're going to get hit with that. So, we got a couple things going on here, right? We got the Titans, who look like this game can't go off. I mean, I don't know any way that this is going to go off going forward. But we also have, against Buffalo, but we also have the Patriots, who play – they're hosting a game against Denver. They had to get on a plane and play the same day against the world champs. Didn't turn out very well. But New England thought they were in the clear, then Stephon Gilmore comes up with a positive test. But they got to go a couple days without test. Maybe they can practice today. But we are now seeing these things come up that are putting us into a situation where there's going to have to be a contingency for making up games later in the season. And these bye weeks aren't going to line up. The first one happened. We moved Baltimore. We moved Pittsburgh. The rest of them aren't. The scenario we talked about is Week 18. I think you saw some stuff on that, right?
Yeah. Dan Graziano with ESPN is reporting that, and this was yesterday, that Week 18 would be probably the best solution. It's being discussed by the NFL of basically having this bye week for everybody else that would be in the playoffs, but a Week 18 that would allow teams that need to make up games could do that. Now, I mean, you talk about two teams right now, the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. Tennessee is undefeated. Buffalo, we've talked about every week as a team that just continues to get better and better and better, that they could be a legitimate threat in the AFC. You start interrupting the season for those teams. And I know this sounds bad, but I mean, let's face it. If we're talking about a 3-0 or a 4-0 team, as opposed to a 1-3 or an 0-4 team, there seems to be a little more sense of urgency with those teams that are off to a good start because they look like legitimate playoff contenders. And I know that's not how we should prioritize everything, because things can change on a dime, but it just seems like what we discussed early in the season, that if you were the number one seed in each conference, you were the only team that was going to get a bye week in the playoffs. Now it sounds like if you make the playoffs and you're not one of those teams that has to play in Week 18, if that's what they decide to do, you're going to get a bye week.
Yeah, I feel everyone's like, what's Week 18? Week 18 is kind of like the 8th round of the NFL draft. It doesn't exist. That's where I was. right? So what they're going to do, just to explain a little bit further, this is kind of like what they did with 9/11, right? When I was playing during 9/11, obviously very close to that in New York, we basically took the second week off and we just rescheduled it all for the week after the last week of the season.
Yeah.
And what happened is they're not going to move the Super Bowl. At least they very much do not want to. So they're going to take and reduce or get rid of the bye week between the championship games and the Super Bowl. Now they haven't pulled the trigger on this, but that's a logical, I think, conclusion on this. And, I think we're looking at it from the fan perspective of like, oh my gosh, these teams that are good need to play. These teams that are bad, it's not as important. Well, what it's really coming down to is money, right?
Yes.
Without a game, you don't have income from that game. And the owners are already getting killed this year by not having people in the stands, the revenue, the concessions and stuff, the parking. I think they're trying to make it as even as possible so everyone gets the same amount of games. So even when we get to that week 18, there might be teams who've missed 2 games and they're going to have to reshuffle the schedule to try to get everyone on equal footing. So it might not be a complete 16-game schedule that every team gets to. So the teams that don't have 16 or their 16 games might get scheduled to play. And if you've already had yours, you might get a bye week. So a lot of this is yet to be determined, but I know one thing, this is a bottom line business. It's about money, and they're going to try to put as many games as possible to make that revenue, because that's how this thing works, all the while trying to keep people safe too. So it's kind of trying to find that middle ground.
Let me ask you this one. I know Ben Roethlisberger said earlier in the week that he felt the Steelers got the short end of the stick. Eric Ebron said a week before that it's not their problem, it's the Tennessee's problem. And look, I understand the frustration of having to sacrifice your bye week because it wasn't a typical bye week. And you even mentioned when we talked last week that typically your bye week is, time with the family. You might plan a little vacation for that week. I mean, it's exactly that week off that everybody's looking forward to. My whole response to that is everybody's had to make some kind of sacrifice during this pandemic. And the bottom line is if you opted in to play this season, you knew this could happen. You knew that your season as you know it could be completely interrupted and could be completely just sort of up in the air, and it could become a big inconvenience. I feel like you knew that going in, and now that we've got some teams that didn't test positive, like the Steelers, but they were to play the Titans that did, all of a sudden they're very upset with how things were handled. My question is, how is it supposed to be handled? What was the NFL supposed to do? So as much as I understand their frustration, I also think there's some tone deafness there too.
Yeah, they sure like those checks that come in every week.
Right.
And they're trying to find a middle ground here. They're trying to appease the situation and not completely hide from it, but at the same time try to be safe. So you're never going to get a solution that makes everyone happy. But I think I lean towards more what you're saying too. You really have an obligation to try to let people get back to work and earn a living, but try to keep them safe at the same time. And for that, you're going to have to sacrifice some of these comforts that you just don't get anymore, right? You don't get to go on an Airbnb, on a vacation with your family during the bye week this year. I mean, look at the NBA who had to stay in a literal bubble. So, again, I think that's just a lot of noise out there, and get ready for it to happen to more teams. It's this is not going to be the first time this happens, and it's not going to be fair. The term fair is something that probably doesn't get thrown around, and I don't think a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for guys who are making that kind of money, that they're still able to go out and do that. It's just going to be a little bit different than before. And I think collectively, it'd be nice to see them kind of band together a little more for the good of the league, because that benefits the players and teams individually too.
Yeah, and as we talked about, again, we're sort of following this thing with the Titans. They did reportedly have one more test positive on Thursday morning. So as you mentioned, it makes it so tough to reopen those facilities to the point that you're getting to crunch time. Even if you're trying to play Monday night, I think that's going to be dicey. So this is a fluid situation. I do want to ask you this before we kind of get off the topic of the reported secret practice that the Tennessee Titans had. Look, I can understand it, and I'm sure you can speak on this very well, that you just don't know when you might be given the green light to return, and you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to prepare for a game. I know this is a performance-based league. We all know that. That's why we love it. Everybody wants to win. And I still think that there is a little bit of that carelessness of understanding that the rules are in place for a reason, and the Titans decided, at least a handful of players decided to ignore those rules and do something that could have created even more of a problem within the organization and maybe have even more positive tests. What do you think the NFL should do, Bober?
Well, just in keeping with consistency, I believe they're going to come down with heavy fines. And I feel like very well, if so the players that are involved, you went to somewhere that was public, knowing
Yep.
that tests, you're kind of endangering other people. I'm not saying
Yep.
it's going to go that far, but the NFL will impose, I think, heavy fines for anyone that they can prove they were there. I think they will hit the team. And this might be one of the first cases that we see with the NFL maybe taking away like a draft pick or something. I mean,
Yep.
they are not going to tolerate this. I mean, it's bad enough that they're getting investigated for however this virus was able to spread there, but then players take off and knowingly go somewhere else. The NFL, this is a public nightmare if they don't get a hold of it. So I guarantee that they will hammer the Titans. I mean, it'll be bad. And players, I mean, you got to be smarter than that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think you're going to go get away with this? I don't
Right.
I understand trying to get better, but that seems like way too much risk for a very small reward.
It's like, hey, that's not our high school team practicing over there. Those guys look large. That doesn't even look like a college team. What is it? It's not like you're incognito or anything. I mean, you're large human beings playing a grown man's game. People are going to notice you when you're out and about, whether you're practicing or whatever. So, just where's the intelligence there? That's my question.
Not very smart at all. Especially knowing that there's a lot of bad publicity is going to come from this.
Something we are hearing about in a story we talked about a couple days ago, too, the firing of Bill O'Brien, is that J.J. Watt and a couple other players had some heated exchanges with Bill O'Brien days leading up to his dismissal. And, that's the one thing we were kind of discussing on Tuesday, Bober, was, is it more of the GM that's being fired if you're Bill O'Brien, or is it more of the coach? And the results on the field for Bill O'Brien as a coach were not bad at all. I mean, they were getting to the playoffs. They just had not taken that ideal step as a team that was making the playoffs. We thought it could have been the GM. The DeAndre Hopkins move was a head scratcher. There were some other things and just some disagreeing going on within the organization. Now you're starting to hear that maybe he really did lose the players, and especially one of the faces of your organization between Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt, having it out where it basically said that's where he lost the team. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little surprising to me that you're hearing these kind of things because he was a very well-liked coach. I mean, the players liked him for a long time, and it very well could have been this GM role that he didn't fit into that kind of caused the whole effect of how he coached too.
Yeah.
I also got to throw this out there. Like, I've been involved obviously in a major comeback that a team in the playoffs came back and beat us, that the coach and the players with that coach never recovered from with the Giants when we lost to the Niners. Mm-hmm. They had the same thing happen to them. Right. Last year, the Chiefs came back when they were up down 24-0 against them. And it seems like since that fake punt, nothing that he's done has been respected by the players and the media and everyone around him. He lost him. I think trading DeAndre Hopkins, I think that rubbed the entire locker room the wrong way. I mean, honestly, you take a guy like that who everyone just loved. I mean, the perfect teammate who they know with him would be doing what they did last year, and they got rid of him for, I mean, who knows what. And they've done that to other players. And I think there was a separation, and that was just like the final straw. And it just fell in, it just imploded on itself. And that's why the Texans fired him now. There's no logical reason to fire him unless there's absolutely no chance of progress. And I guarantee the ownership had players going to them, and they had, it was discussed a lot more than we have let on. I think it's been coming for a little bit of time now, and now they're moving forward. The hardest part is now they got Romeo Crennel, who is a great coordinator, never been a great head coach. This is his role, interim. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, maybe they get a chance to hire someone early. I just don't know how how this season now goes for them. But yeah, Bill O'Brien lost his team a while back, and this is the result.
Yeah, you would think that the GM is priority number one for that organization. Get that GM in there and allow him to hire his guy. That's the only way this thing's going to work, because I can guarantee you this: they're not going to give a head coach the multiple duties, the shared duties of general manager and coach again. I just do not think there's any way that happens. But
I think that should be illegal anyway. I mean, gee,
it's not good.
Besides, I mean, Holmgren got brought down by that. There's so many great coaches who got brought.
And Bill Belichick is pretty much in that role too. But I mean, not. I mean, who else is Bill Belichick, right?
So is Andy Reid too. I mean, Andy Reid
Yeah.
is the GM, but he has a big voice on personnel matters. That's probably the highest that I would give. I wouldn't give the guy that title, because really, how can you, being a head coach in the NFL is one of the hardest things you can possibly imagine. And now you're going to let him make personnel decisions. I just don't think that those two things mix, because you have to have some sort of separation so that you can bring two minds into one. But anyway, who knows where they're going to go this season.
Still waiting for the day that Jerry Jones takes over as head coach, so he has all three major jobs checked off in 1 year. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's got to happen.
When he fired Jason Garrett, just walk out there with the headset in the last game.
Well, Mike Nolan's not really cutting as the DC. Maybe Jerry can step and be the defensive coordinator, then the GM and the owner, and maybe we could just go from there.
Yeah, that would be truly Jerry's.
All right, Thursday night football tonight. I would say I'm excited just because it's a chance to see a better matchup on paper than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. I think Chicago, what they showed last week, was completely underwhelming with the new quarterback and Nick Foles. Tampa Tom has looked good. There's still some injuries there. O.J. Howard out for the year. Godwin doesn't sound like he's a go tonight either. So you do have Tom Brady still kind of working with limited personnel. But, I mean, really, Chris, this thing comes down to, in my opinion anyway, the Chicago offense, because I think the defense at times can make stops, but they're not going to keep Tampa under 20 points, in my opinion. If they do, that'll be because Tom is making a lot of mistakes, and he does like to throw pick sixes. We have seen that, but the Bears offense needs to show the ability to score more than 21 points. If they can't do that, not only are they going to lose this game, but that 3-0 start that they got off to, it's going to be a distant memory.
Yeah, and I think this, is an intriguing matchup to see what Tom Brady can do against his Bears defense. But the biggest thing in my mind, and I believe like Chicago's offense is going to be completely overmatched by Tampa's defense. They can get after you on that defense, and they are very good. They create turnovers, they sack the quarterback, they stop the run. I don't know how Chicago can score enough points to keep up with Tampa. I mean, they're going to get Evans back tonight, I believe. They still have weapons there. They have Gronkowski. They can run the ball. I mean, Chicago's only get 3.5 points, and I'd take Tampa to second with that, because I think Tampa's gonna win this game. I think Chicago is still learning how to be with Nick Foles. I think it's a bad matchup for Chicago, honestly. The only thing they got going for them is they're at home, which there's no home field advantage, but they're on grass, might slow them down. I don't know. I think I have way more confidence in Tampa to cover that line than I do Chicago, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the other part about this matchup is going to be Matt Nagy. He was brought in to be this great offensive leader. His first year, I mean, he's the coach of the year. He gets the most out of Mitch Trubisky, basically got out of the defense's way, said, hey, we won't screw things up. You guys go win us games. They did that. Last year you saw whether he was handcuffed because of the quarterback or not, the play calling I still think has a lot of questions to it. And now there's no escaping that. You're in a national television audience tonight. You have what you consider to be your guy, a quarterback. This is why you brought in Nick Foles, is to run that offense. And yeah, I get it. You're down Tariq Cohen, but that cannot be the only reason that this offense does not take a step forward. So not only do I think this is not a great matchup for the Chicago Bears, but I also think when it comes to Matt Nagy and how he's going to be kind of viewed, whether it's his stay in Chicago or other jobs, I think this is a big spot for him. He's got to show that he can get this offense moving and put them in the best position. Now, ultimately, that's going to come down to Nick Foles, and I know the offensive line is leaky too, but it's going to come down to, I think, as well, as Matt Nagy putting this offense in the right position, being able to make this offense better by just doing things that make more sense.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm going to indict them on tonight's game or last week's game either. I'd like to see them, and one thing we didn't kind of cover is that, we're just getting done with the first quarter of the NFL season, right? And what my coach, Jim Foss at the Giants, the year we went to the Super Bowl, had the best breakdown of how to break up. A 16-game season is long. So
Mm-hmm.
he broke it up into quarters, right? And you wanted to win every quarter by going 3-1, have more wins than losses. And if you don't win one quarter, you have to make it up on the next quarter. Teams that are playoff teams, that's how they look at it.
Yeah.
If you're not a playoff team, if you're rebuilding, if you're somewhere in the middle, you're trying to win a quarter. The Bears won the first quarter. They went
Yep.
3-1. They need to figure out how to win the second quarter. And I don't think it's going to start with a great result tonight, but let's see how they progress. If you can keep Nick Foles healthy, if you can get him comfortable and the players around him comfortable in that offense, then you start putting yourself in a position to compete against the better teams in their division, in their conference, and that won't necessarily happen this quarter. This second quarter is going to be hard on them.
Yeah.
The Bears need to progress, and they have to come out of this quarter going into the second half of the season with Foles healthy and with the players around him understanding what he can and can't do, including the head coach and the coordinator. So tonight, I think will be a bad experiment, but let's see how they do the next 3-4 games. And if they're playing better when they get to the third quarter, then you start talking about them as maybe sneaking into the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're going to take a step back here with Foles and with this new offense. They had a tough matchup. It's going to be tough on them tonight, I think.
Yeah. The defense right now, too, before we get past this game, for Chicago, it's been average, if even that. And this defense is not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be a top 5 defense. So that's the other thing, not to let them off the hook, too. They need to be better. I mean, flat out. You got Robert Quinn, so you've got your 2 edge rushers with Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. They've got to be better. So defensively, they need to be better than average.
They've been more talked about than producing this year, right? We
Yep.
talked about how great they are, and I think Khalil Mack's an absolute stud. But he has not been wrecking games like he was last year or the year before. He's been handled, quite honestly, and he doesn't get paid to get handled. He gets paid to destroy the offensive tackles and get to the quarterback, and he hasn't pulled his weight either.
So the games we got on Sunday, we can start out with the noon games and the Panthers and the Falcons. We're kind of curious about this Panthers team all of a sudden. I know they are an underdog against Atlanta. Atlanta will have some fans there, I believe, but not a lot. So it's still not that true home field advantage. I don't know, man. I feel like the wrong team's favored here.
Yeah, I'm going to flat out take Carolina as my underdog this week because an 0-4 Atlanta team that is literally a very bad review away from firing Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
Is favored somehow against a very hot Carolina team that's won their last 2 games. I don't understand this line at all, honestly. The only thing we can count on is probably Atlanta scoring a whole bunch of points to start this game. But they're kind of like Detroit at this point. You can't count on them to finish a game.
Right.
I don't think there's any belief in their system, in their coach. And Carolina, I would say, is one of the hottest teams right now. And they're doing it without Christian McCaffrey. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater and the players they have, I think it's Evans and Robbie Anderson and the defense, they've all stepped up. And, man, I tell you what, Carolina is a team that I don't want to face right now. So I take them as my underdog of the week. They're an underdog. I mean, the line started at -3.5. Now it's about -1. But, man, I don't know. I think Carolina should be favored in this game. I do. I love what they're doing out there, and they're doing it with, like, unheralded guys. Matt Rule, I mean, you talk about a coach. This is a good coach, and they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, give me Mike Davis all day long, man. That's my pickup on the waiver wire in fantasy football 2 weeks ago, and he's producing. And I think you bring up an excellent point. The Panthers, we're not crowning them as a playoff contender just yet, but the fact that they are winning games without one of their best players in Christian McCaffrey is definitely impressive, to say the very least. A game that I don't think we probably need to worry about right now is the Bills-Titans because it just does not seem like it's going to happen. And that's a shame, too, because that would have been a fantastic matchup, the ability to run the football with Tennessee, and then, of course, what Buffalo has been doing both defensively and offensively. I just don't think we're going to see that happen. So let's get to your Kansas City Chiefs. They are a very large favorite at home against the rival Las Vegas Raiders. 12.5 points is what Kansas City is laying against the Raiders. Where are you at with this one?
Wow. I'm actually seeing this up to 13 now. It's kind of all over. And I think the best way I've heard this is called the point spread tax. So I think Vegas is sick of getting killed by people who bet the Chiefs. They're world champs. A lot of people like to put money on them, and it's like they can't give a big enough point spread because they keep on covering, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I bet this on them covering. So I think if I was laying money, and I would not probably not put money on this, but I would say the Raiders actually is a better bet. If you're looking at a point spread
Yeah.
for 12.5, 13 points, I saw 13.5 somewhere. The Raiders didn't play that bad last week. They're not that bad of a team, and they present a matchup issue, right? Josh Jacobs, who's on my fantasy team, looks to have a bounce back this week because the Chiefs will give up some running yards. And the Chiefs, quite honestly, haven't been starting games very good. So the Raiders could come out and get get a lead. I wouldn't be surprised if they go up by 10 points in this game, and then the Chiefs just methodically kind of come back like they always do. But 13 and a half, 12, whatever it's at, that's way too high
Yeah.
to lay. I'd actually, if you're looking for a bet, the Raiders would be a good bet on the on the unders. Not the unders, but to cover that bet, 12, 13 and a half. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I'm with you. I think that the Chiefs, I think they win, but they've at least shown us a few times that they haven't been always in sync, and I think it's all matchup dependent as it typically is on a Sunday. But I would hold off on the Chiefs and the points on this one. The Chiefs laying the points that they are. If I'm putting any money on this one, I'm either looking at the over on it or I'm taking the Raiders and what they're getting as opposed to what the Chiefs are laying. Um,
Yep, and there's
another.
a
Go
couple
ahead.
bad tips here real quick because I mean, the Chiefs. The thing that I'm leery about is the Chiefs always beat up on the Raiders at home, right? And
Mhm.
they always do. I mean, they'll go and barely win on the road, but they always just beat the heck out of them at home. Plus, I think the Raiders have a great matchup against the Chiefs, middle of the field defenders and their linebackers who aren't covering that well right now. In that Waller, I think he's gonna have a day. If there's a prop bet out there for Waller to have 10 catches, I mean, if you get anything below 10 catches, I bet the over. Waller's going to have a day, I think, against the Chiefs because they struggle against tight ends in there, and
Yeah.
because they have to cover those receivers. So that's why there's a couple of things in there. The points are bad, but there's some other things maybe looking at.
And I guess we should mention too, the Chiefs are another team that everybody's kind of watching right now, just because Stephon Gilmore, his close contact, and of course the post game handshake with Patrick Mahomes. I know everybody is kind of uneasy about that. The good news is the Chiefs have not had any positive tests, so that is good. But we are. I mean, as we've seen, there's an incubation period with this virus where we're just hoping that that stays the case as far as having negative tests for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and I don't think that's any different than him get tackled by him.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't think it's a huge risk factor. I think it's more of a PR kind of factor than anything. Him kind of
The
apologizing
optics.
for
Yeah.
not wearing the mask when he had the choice to do so. So that's
Yeah.
more than actual the danger of it, I think.
All right, an interesting one. Jets Cardinals. 2 weeks ago, Bober, you and I were both on the Cardinals thinking, all right, Kingsbury's got this thing going. You saw it just goes all the way back to the draft night where he's like a drug kingpin overlooking his lair, overlooking his country.
Uh,
And you're like, God, what a baller, right? And then Kyler Murray gets it going. The first couple of weeks, they look great. Now they have lost 2 games in a row. They play the worst team in the NFL, right? I mean, there's nobody worse than the Jets right now. So you would think this is a great bounce back opportunity for the Cardinals. But this was the thing I was most curious about with Arizona is when they got off to a good start, how would they handle success? How would they handle a lot of the praise that they were going to be getting? And they've responded with 2 losses. So this is a game that I think Arizona wins. I think they cover. But this is also a weird enough matchup with all the chaos in New York and everybody talking about Adam Gase, who should be fired, and I think he probably will be. Would it stun you if the Jets just showed up this weekend and did something that none of us are really expecting? Because I don't think the Cardinals are that good where I don't think that they're, someone that is just going to show up and you crown them that win.
well, I can't lay any kind of confidence in the Jets at all. I think Joe Flacco is actually going to start for them
He
this week.
is. Yes,
Um,
he is.
they don't have a lot. I mean, they got a couple tough dudes on defense, I think, but other than that, they really lack almost anything that is to get excited about. I actually think Arizona comes back and makes that kind of a statement. And the Jets are the perfect team to kind of
They
bounce
are.
against. They are. I'm not going to lay 6.5 or 7, whatever it's at. But if I was leaning some way, I think I would lean towards Arizona covering that. I think they go out to New York. I think Kyler Murray gets to run all over the place and do some great things. Another feel-good comeback against a bad team. So I think Arizona should be good on this. I don't think I'd bet it, but I think I'd lean that way.
Very interesting game also at noon, and that is the Steelers hosting the Eagles. And the reason I say this is interesting, first of all, the Steelers are coming off of the,
Oh, bye.
the bye week that was not planned, so the unplanned bye week. I think they're kind of pissed off. They want to get out there and play, and that's great. But I also think there is still something to be seen with the Pittsburgh Steelers defensively. They've looked very good offensively. They've looked fine. They haven't played anybody spectacular, but hey, you don't apologize when you win a game on a Sunday, no matter who you're playing. The Eagles, I think, at least gave you, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, at least gave you some type of hope that they can get things going. There were some really good throws by Carson Wentz last week against the San Francisco 49ers, and they're that type of team that I feel like they have enough talent, both on the defense and offensive side, that you just kind of need that spark to get going. And maybe they had that against a banged up 49ers team. I don't know, but I do feel like these two teams are kind of what you said about the Cardinals, trying to look to make a statement, really try to validate where they currently are right now. I think the Steelers want to say, hey, this is a good team, a talented team that we're playing, and we're going to beat them. Then all of a sudden you really take the Steelers serious. And if the Eagles are to be a legitimate playoff team or a team that could do something in the playoffs, because they are in a horrible division right now, and they're still leading that division, if they want to give you more confidence than just, they could be the best of the bad teams in the East, this is a game, I think, for them to do it.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is going to be a defensive battle, right? Because the Eagles have a good defense. They showed that last week. They had a great effort. They're getting some guys back, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a great defense. So if I would bet anything on this, I'd bet the under,
Yep.
especially early in this game. If you got a prop bet, maybe points for the first quarter or first half, I think defenses are going to rule the day here. Neither of these teams is that explosive right now, right? Pittsburgh, I just don't know what to think about Roethlisberger yet. They got some weapons, but they're not really like, oh my gosh, we're just going to go run everything out. Their best bet is to run James Conner and run the clock. I think it's going to be tough, so I think there's going to be a lot of punts in this game. I would actually bet the under if I could, especially if it's 44-45, because I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. But I would say that probably I would actually, if I was leaning, I'd also lean at Philly.
I would too,
Plus
with the
7.
points.
Honestly, getting the points there, I think it's going to be a 3 or 4 point win. If that, I think it's going to be a close game. This is always a close game out there. And the Steelers, I think, are for real. It's just, I also think Philly's defense is for real too. So I think this is a good matchup, a great game to watch, I think.
We got a quarterback change in Washington, but it's not Alex Smith. It's Kyle Allen that'll be starting. Dwayne Haskins just has not been getting it done so far, so there is going to be a switch there. They host the Rams. Maybe not the best time to make a quarterback change because the defense for the Rams is still playing lights out. And in a season that we have not seen a lot of defense, I think we've seen it from the Colts. We've seen it at times from the Bills. We're seeing it from the Rams. There are teams here and there. I do not think this is a good situation for Washington at all. Sometimes that quarterback change can energize a team, but I feel like this is sort of a desperation move by the Washington football team. So they are a 7-point underdog against the Rams. I feel very good about this game, Chris. I think this is the one I'm taking as far as the favorites to cover. I think the Rams cover by more than a touchdown against the Washington football team.
Yeah, and the Rams are also coming off a very subpar performance in New York, right? They played a Giants team that they won, but they didn't do a lot on offense, really just one big play. Look for them to bounce back coming this week. I think it's a big line, but I think they do cover as well. I think it's a great a best bet. And while Washington continues to – I mean, they have so much to overcome, and it's a great story with Ron Rivera. Alex Smith now apparently is going to be active, maybe. They talked about him being a backup now. I think they finally wised up and realized that Haskins just isn't there mentally. I mean, the game was a little too fast for him. He makes a lot of bad decisions, turns the ball over. I don't think that there's much of an improvement putting the backup in there. But at the end of the day, I think it's more about the Rams and what they do. I look they just to come out and just control this game from the very beginning, they can neutralize that pretty good pass rush of Washington with a lot of play action passes and running the ball. So yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good line too.
Bengals Ravens. Look, I'm not trying to suggest this is your upset alert. I've said it every week. Joe Burrow has impressed me. I was not a believer that he would come right into the league and sort of pick up from where he left off a year ago when he was at LSU, but he has. He's taken a lot of shots. He's still been able to have good numbers. Look, the Bengals need a lot more, though, than just what Joe Burrow has to offer, and Baltimore is one of the most talented teams in the entire league. So I think the Ravens win this game. But as far as Cincinnati possibly being sort of a thorn in the side of the Ravens throughout this game, that would not shock me either. Again, not suggesting the Bengals pull off an upset, but I think they could make this thing competitive.
Yeah, honestly, the Bengals are feeling pretty good about themselves now. Where they really lack the matchup power is on their offensive line. So that's where they can beat up a lot. But Joe Mixon had 3 touchdowns last week. He did really well. 13.5 is what I'm seeing on this number. That's a big number. And I would not be surprised if Burrow gets that backdoor cover. I mean, so the underdog in this as far as points go is right there. I think it's right for the picking. It's hard to lay 13.5.
Yeah.
Very well might win by that, but I'd say there's more likely that Cincinnati covers the spread. Baltimore's good, but this is the NFL, man. They're 13.5 is huge. It just hard. This is that tax like the Chiefs get. When you're one of the best teams, they're sick. The people who are putting these out there, Vegas and them, are sick of paying out money for these teams winning big. So they're trying to tease that line up as high as they can.
The Ravens will be up by 14 at one point, but I'm with you. I could just see a backdoor cover. Something's going to happen. I just think the Bengals will be within 12 to 10 points, and that I would feel more. I'm with you. I feel more confident taking the Ravens, or I'm sorry, the Bengals laying what they're getting as far as, or as opposed to what the Bengals are having to lay, or the Ravens are having to lay. So
as long as Lamar Jackson keeps on putting up points, man. I got 4-0 on my fantasy team, so got to keep that momentum going.
Well, he'll give you the numbers. Now the Texans, okay, they made the coaching change. Romeo Crennel is now taking over as interim coach. They host the Jaguars. Jaguars 1-3. Houston's looking for their first win. Houston, oddly enough, is a 6-point favorite in this one. I'm one of those people. I got to see this before I can really buy in. Now, yes, Houston should be able to win this football game, but will they? They haven't won yet.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to give any sort of credible advice on this one because, you got this kind of phenomenon that happens when you replace a coach where the team comes out and has this momentum, but it's also against Jacksonville, who they're hot and they're cold.
They beat the Colts.
Throw a dart at the wall kind of thing because I have no idea how to do this. I would not even go near this one.
Nope, I wouldn't either. Afternoon games, we've got the Niners hosting the Dolphins. San Francisco is an 8.5-point favorite in a lot of books right now. I think that seems about right. I think the Niners were a little shell-shocked against the Eagles last week, and I think they faced an Eagles team that was absolutely in desperation mode. That's not to say that the Niners are not in desperation mode now at 2-2. You talk about the quarters of the season. That's not the start that the Niners wanted to get off to at 2-2. They're banged up. They've got to, right now, nobody is going to come and help. You're not getting a replacement for Nick Bosa now. So you've got to find out, or Joey Bosa, you've got to find out what this team is really made out of. And I think defensively, they're still a stout unit. Offensively, even with their quarterback situation, they've just got to be able to win the games they're supposed to. And in my opinion, this is a game they're supposed to win.
Yeah, Miami's got to travel across the country all the way to San Francisco to play this game, where the Niners are much more comfortable at home. 9 points, 8.5, whatever you're seeing out there. That's a big line, though. Fitz Magic tends to show up when he's not supposed to. Yeah. So he's kind of like a Burrow. He's on a bad team, but he makes some plays. I don't think I touch that point spread. In theory, they should win, but I don't trust him covering on the back door on this one either.
Yeah, it's a thing that if the Niners, the other part is you've got to be able to essentially right the ship while they've got guys out that could be coming back, and mainly Jimmy Garoppolo, your quarterback. You've got to figure out ways to just win the game. So I wouldn't bet this. There's no way. But if the Niners win by 1 point, you're happy. You move on to the next one. You're above 500 now because the Niners, by the end of the regular season, could still be one of the better teams in the NFC and could still possibly put themselves in a position to make some noise in the playoffs if they can get there. But you've got to win these games.
Yeah, but I think they do. I just don't know if I'd take 9.
No, I definitely would not either. The other afternoon games, Browns, Colts, I think this is going to be a good game. I really do. I think that we talked about the Colts, their defense, they have looked very good. The Browns, all of a sudden, slowly but surely, are gaining more and more and more confidence. Their offense was on fire, and they did it mainly on the ground. Now, the Nick Chubb injury is problematic, but they've been able to also account for other guys, Duke Johnson, and having Kareem Hunt in there as well. Baker Mayfield has not had to do as much throwing the football. He's been more effective off the play action. Credit Kevin Stefanski. So I think this is just going to be a fantastic game. Indianapolis is only a 1.5-point favorite.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm on the Browns bandwagon. I am. This is my best bet of the week because I think this is a fantastic matchup for Cleveland, right? Yes, they are going against a very good Indianapolis defense, but I think they match up well because they run the ball, they wear teams out, where Indy was more big play. I'd be surprised if Stefanski puts Mayfield in a position to lose this game, right? I don't think you're going to drop him back. They're going to move him around. They're going to run the football. And Indianapolis on offense is very underwhelming. Philip Rivers is a great placeholder, but he's not making a lot of plays down the field. They would not be surprised if Cleveland goes out to a decent-sized lead because that's how Indianapolis plays. I don't see a lot of weapons out there for Indianapolis. I like them. I just don't like them in this matchup. I think Cleveland is playing great. I think that they're healthy for the most part. I think that there's a lot to like about what they do over there. So these, as an underdog, I'm taking them as my best bet. I mean, I'm surprised they're an underdog. I mean, honestly, I'm just very surprised that they are. I think it's the Cleveland factor. They're playing in Cleveland. I like them. I like them to win this game. I take 1.5 points, but I like them to actually win the game.
I might go head-to-head with you on this one because here's the big concerning factor that I have with Cleveland is they still are not sound defensively. They can give up a lot of points. And the thing that we saw with Indianapolis last week is they settled for a lot of field goals. They only got 1 touchdown. They're going to need to convert some of those scoring opportunities actually in the end zone. We know that. But I do think there is a part of Cleveland defensively that still worries me. And I think I'm just going to take the better defense in this game where I would probably take the Colts to win this one straight up. But more than anything, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. And if you're right, if the Browns do win this one, then look out because I think we're starting to talk about a team that got a legitimately impressive win against a good defense because what they did offensively last week was not against a good defense and did the Dallas Cowboys. If they can do something similar or at least do enough offensively against this defense in Indianapolis, then I think you got a lot to be excited about if you're in Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if on defense, if Indianapolis, I think they lost their linebacker there. I don't know if he's going to come back and play this week. So we'll see how that goes. That's a difference maker over there. But this looks to be a great matchup. This is going to be a good game.
Yeah. Some of the more afternoon games, your Giants and those Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys should win this game, but can they stop them? They're a 9.5-point favorite. So this one, again, I wouldn't touch. I think Dallas has the offensive firepower to easily cover that, but they can't stop anybody. The good news is Danny Dimes doesn't have Saquon Barkley. They've been banged up on that side of the football, so I don't really believe the Giants can score a lot, but with the Dallas offense or defense, they might be able to.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to see those big lines with division games, right? People think that Dallas is Dallas, and they're remembering Dallas last year and the year before, and the Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. But Dallas has also only won 1 game, right? And they had to have a miracle comeback.
Yeah.
Now the Giants are not that good. Don't get me wrong. However, those are both teams I think honestly are closer than they're farther apart in reality in terms of winning games. So I would like Giants to cover this point spread. I don't think I bet on them right now. I'm not going to pick them for anything, but I would lean towards the Giants in covering as an underdog because Dallas is not as good as people make them out to be. And I don't think the Giants are as bad as people make them out to be. I think this is a closer game. It's a division rivalry. The Giants always go down to Jerry's World and win there. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but they play well down there. And these games usually are not blowouts. So I think like 4 or 6 points, maybe 7 points game, but not 9.5. You know what I mean? That's just way too big of a spread.
What do they say? You are what your record is, and
Yeah.
there's only one win between those two teams. So they very well could be a lot closer than what people would consider, at least closer than what a 9.5 point spread would indicate. We'll find out. Broncos Patriots, again, a game that could very well be on hold. So I don't know how much time we really want to spend on this. Stephon Gilmore obviously would not be playing. Cam Newton would not be playing. So that I just think that this is kind of an interesting matchup that would probably favor the Broncos if they can actually play this game, and not meaning to favor the Broncos to the point that they win, but this would be a great opportunity for the Broncos if they do indeed get this game in this weekend.
Yeah, they very well could be without arguably the best defensive player in the league, in Stephon Gilmore, because he's not. There's no way he can play in this game, and
Nope.
Cam Newton might not be able to play either. So you got your best player on offense and defense going to be out. For that reason, even though they are the Broncos, it's going to be a big point spread's hard. You just don't know. It's a very much an unknown in this game. So I don't think I touch this or go anywhere near it. I just hope they get to play the game.
Yeah. Big Sunday night game, and this is where this is going to be weird because I've been on the Seahawks all season long. I love what they're doing. I think their defense is not great, but I don't think it's as bad as some people might think. The Vikings, though, I'm telling you, there's still something with this team. There's still some punch with this team, and I like for 2 consecutive weeks they've played very good offense. Defensively, they're a struggle. I still think Seattle wins this game, but I'm going to take the points in this one. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings that are getting 7 points in this one against Seattle because, again, you don't have the 12th man factor on a Sunday night. If this was Sunday night with that place just completely banged out as we always see it as in Seattle, then yeah, give me Seattle and what they're laying. But for whatever reason, it's like one of those old favorite college beers you just can't let go of. That's how I am with the Minnesota Vikings right now. I just cannot let go, and I cannot accept that they might be a bad football team. I think their offense has got something going. They just have to make some stops defensively.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for offense this week, right? And the numbers I think is 57.5, and I still think that's going to go over.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think this is going to be like a 43-31 game. I mean, it's going to be a lot of points scored in this game because both these teams actually are playing good offense. It's going to be in prime time, which tends to tease these games up higher in points. Mm-hmm. They get a lot more rest. Defenses have a major struggle on these games. So, yeah, underdog of the week, Minnesota. It's not a bad pick. Again, I don't think they win this game because I think Russell Wilson more times than not finds a way to win football games. But it just covering 7, it's a line that's going to be hard to cover.
Yeah, I think it's like a 38-35 game.
Yeah,
and I'll ride with Seattle to win, but I'm just going to take Minnesota getting the points that they are because they can score, they just can't stop anybody.
Yeah.
The Monday night game, don't get caught up in the records because I think this is a sneaky good game. The Saints, again, kind of like the Vikings, a little bit better position I think they're in, but they're still trying to sort of validate what everybody thought they would be at the beginning of the season. They've gotten that record now to 2-2, but the Chargers with Justin Herbert, they've had 2 very tough losses. One to Tampa Bay where they were in that game, and to the Kansas City Chiefs. So 2 very good teams that they lost to. I think they got something there with Justin Herbert. I'll admit, I'm surprised by this too. I was a lot more high on Joe Burrow than I was on Justin Herbert, and I wasn't very high on Joe Burrow going into this season. Herbert's got some big-time accuracy strength. Like we're talking 40 to 50 yards in the air, accurate ball. So I think that there is an offense that's starting to click there with the Chargers. I know New Orleans at home is a 7.5-point favorite. That's another game that it wouldn't shock me if the Saints win, but I would not feel confident taking them laying the points that they are because I think the Chargers are starting to figure some things out offensively.
Yeah, I think you're right because I think New Orleans is playing very, very much better. Their defense finally showed up last week and made some plays. The Chargers, I just don't know. When you got a young quarterback and a coach who's somewhat young too, and a young team really, they tend to make mistakes. Like last week when all they had to do is take a knee at the end of the first half, and they end up giving the momentum back to Tampa by fumbling at the 10-yard line. I mean, there's no real excuse for that, and especially as a running back coach, right? If you watch that play, it's a shotgun snap and then almost like a zone read handoff. I mean, if you want to have ball security, get under center, take the snap.
Right.
hand it off. You know, a running backs coach should know better than that. So I don't trust their decision making. I think there'll be a point in this game where there's very competitive and they make a bad decision. I mean, even Herbert at the end of the game, you know, when they're trying to come back through a pretty bad interception too. I just don't think their talent wise is there, but I don't think their decision making is there yet. I think it's going to be a good game. I think LA gives them a run, but New Orleans, I think they come out and they find a way to win this game. And then more than that, I think the Chargers do a thing or two to lose it, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think LA should be good by the points. I don't think I pick them just yet, but I think New Orleans wins this game. They have to. You know, they're known for winning games when they have to win. They need to get back in this division race, and a big win to start this quarter would be big for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to play some tough competition in that division now. So this is a must win for them.
Week 5 gets underway tonight, Chicago and Tampa Bay on Fox. I will be probably biting my nails for a lot. I don't feel great about this one. So I just hope it's not embarrassing. That's all I'm hoping. I mean, is that bad? I mean, I just hope it's not embarrassing tonight.
Well, I mean, you've been a lifelong Bears fan. I mean, except for, 30 years ago, when they won the Super Bowl. Right?
I was 6 years old. That was my first Bears memory, is when the '85 Super Bowl Shuffle came through the NFL. So yeah, of course I was hooked after that.
And I was a big Bears fan back then too. Walter Payton was my favorite player of all time, and I remember because I got to meet a couple of the Bears, see their Super Bowl ring. I just happened to expand my horizons a little bit.
Lucky.
But I'm just hoping for a good game tonight.
Yeah.
We've been lucky to have some good games recently, and we get football back on TV. We're very grateful. Let's hope it keeps up. And amid all the concerns with the virus and stuff, that we find a way to just keep playing football, because I think it's a good welcome distraction that we need.
Yeah, no question. It is the Bober and Handley Pro Football Podcast, YouTube channel, AM 590 ESPN Radio. Chris, enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy that high school football as well. And I'll be talking to you next week.
All right, buddy. Good luck with your bets.
You as well.